I have a question right off the bat, and I really want you to be painfully honest with me.
Yeah.
Right now, as you are listening to this, is there something else you're actually supposed to be doing?
You mean like doing a tax return or maybe writing that really difficult email you've been dreading all day?
Yeah, exactly that. And instead of doing that big thing, are you listening to us while, say, aggressively cleaning your kitchen?
Oh, yeah, scrubbing the grout?
Right.
Ugh.
Or maybe you're reorganizing your bookshelf by color. Or deciding that right now is just the absolute critical moment to, I don't know, research the best kind of fertilizer for a garden you don't even have yet.
Yes, the classic productive procrastination.
Exactly.
We do all these little, easy things to feel busy, specifically so we can avoid the big, scary thing.
We totally do. And usually the narrative in my head when I'm doing that is, well, it's pretty harsh. I tell myself I'm just lazy. I tell myself I have terrible time management, or that I just need to, buckle down. But today, we're taking a deep dive into some research that suggests that entire narrative is actually completely wrong.
It is wrong, and honestly, more importantly, it's just unhelpful. So today isn't about calendar hacks or time management tricks. We are going to look at the actual biological machinery and the deep emotional roots of why we stall.
Yeah, and we've got two really distinct, really heavy-hitting perspectives to synthesize for you today. On one side, we have Dr. Andrew Huberman.
Right, the neurobiologist from Stanford.
Exactly. And he looks at this through the lens of chemicals, specifically dopamine. He basically treats the brain like a machine.
Yeah, that's the hardware explanation. But, if we stop there, we really miss half the picture. So we're also bringing in Alyssa Smith. She's a trauma-informed life strategist, and her sources argue that procrastination is actually a survival mechanism. It's not laziness at all. It's about safety.
I have to admit, when I first saw the word trauma linked to procrastination, I kind of rolled my eyes a little bit.
Sure, yeah.
It just feels like everything is labeled trauma these days. But as I read through her work on what she calls tiny T trauma, it actually really clicked for me.
It's a very powerful concept, and our goal for this deep dive is to reconcile these two very different views, because here is the paradox we're dealing with today. Huberman's solution involves essentially inflicting pain on yourself.
Yeah, which sounds awful.
Right, and then Smith's solution involves making yourself feel incredibly safe.
So by the end of this deep dive, you're going to have a toolkit, but you really have to know which tool to use, because otherwise you might actually make the procrastination worse. So let's start with the biology side. Huberman and dopamine.
Let's do it.
So we hear dopamine thrown around constantly.
Okay.
All right, it's the pleasure molecule. I eat a cookie, I get a hit of dopamine, I feel good.
Well, that is the common misconception, and it's really where most people get lost right out of the gate. Huberman clarifies this immediately in his work. Dopamine isn't about the pleasure of eating the cookie. It's actually about the craving to go get the cookie. It's the engine of motivation. It is not the reward itself.
Oh, okay, so it's the drive.
Exactly, it's the wanting. And there is a specific mechanism Huberman highlights called reward prediction error. And this is crucial for understanding why we do what we do.
Reward prediction error.
Yeah. Basically, your brain is constantly predicting how good something will be. If you anticipate a huge reward, your dopamine spikes before you even get the thing.
So the anticipation is actually the high.
Often, yes. But here is the problem. To explain why we procrastinate, Huberman uses this fantastic analogy of a wave pool.
Oh, I love this analogy. Let's really break this down for everyone listening.
Okay, so imagine your general level of motivation, just how you feel on a random, boring Tuesday afternoon.
Just baseline existence.
Right. That's the water level in that pool. That is your baseline. Now, when you crave something, say checking your phone, eating a snack, getting a text message that creates a wave in the pool, a peak.
Okay, so the wave goes up. We feel alert, we feel excited.
Precisely. But here is the physics of the brain that, frankly, screws us over. What goes up must come down. And it doesn't just come down to that flat baseline water level.
It crashes.
It crashes hard. The water actually splashes out of the pool. This creates a trough where your dopamine level drops below your normal baseline.
Called baseline.
Yeah.
And what does that trough actually feel like? Does it just feel normal again?
No, and that's the kicker. The trough is painful. It feels like a craving. It feels like this deep restlessness. It feels like, ugh, everything is boring and I really don't want to do anything right now.
Right.
And Huberman explains that the depth of that low point, that trough, is directly proportional to how high the peak was.
So simply put, The better the high, the worse the crash.
Exactly. And this right here is where the procrastination trap snaps shut on us. When you are in that trough, when you're feeling unmotivated and sluggish because you just say, doom scrolled for 20 minutes, what do you do?
Well, I feel bad, so I look for a quick fix. I pick up the phone again. I eat the chocolate. I try to get that good feeling back.
Right. You're trying to fill the pool back up. You are reaching for easy dopamine to get out of the pain of that trough, but that just creates another little spike and then another crash. You are essentially just drowning in the shallow end of the pool.
Okay, so if I'm sitting there staring at my laptop, totally unmotivated to do my work, and I'm stuck in this dopamine trough, what am I actually supposed to do? Do I just wait it out?
I mean, you can wait, but the biological reset takes a really long time. Huberman's solution is extremely counterintuitive. He calls it steepening the trough.
Steepening the trough. That sounds kind of ominous.
It is a bit. Basically, if you are in a state of low motivation, which, as we established, is a state of mild pain, you shouldn't try to soothe it with something easy. You should actually do something harder and more painful than the state you are currently in.
Hold on. You want me to make myself more miserable? I'm already procrastinating because I don't want to work. Why on earth would I add pain?
Because of the physics of the wave pool we talked about, if you create a steep, sharp drop in dopamine, a shock to the system, the brain's rebound mechanism kicks in much harder to save you. It essentially forces your baseline to shoot back up faster.
Okay, I'm going to need a concrete example here. Let's say I'm stalling on writing a script. What is the harder thing?
Cold water. Huberman is a huge proponent of deliberate cold exposure. We're talking 37 to 55 degrees Fahrenheit submerged up to the neck.
Okay, pause. Let's be realistic. I am not going to jump into a literal ice bath in the middle of a workday when I have a report due in an hour. That sounds like just another form of procrastination. Is there a version of this that doesn't involve hypothermia?
Yeah, fair enough. It doesn't have to be water, but it has to be a physical shock. So if you're at the office, you could sprint up 3 flights of stairs until your lungs physically burn. Or you could do a really intense breathing exercise where you hyperventilate safely to spike your adrenaline.
The point is to spike adrenaline.
The point is to engage with friction. It sucks in the moment. It is undeniably painful. But that physical shock resets the chemical system. It causes a massive rebound in dopamine that lasts for hours afterwards.
So I'm basically jump-starting my car battery.
Exactly. You are using a physical shock to kickstart the chemical machinery of motivation. And this brings us to a term Huberman uses that I think is just brilliant. He calls it limbic friction.
Limbic friction. It sounds like a car part.
It's a great visual, right? Think of limbic friction like driving a car, but you have the parking brake on. Your forebrain, which is the logic center, is slamming on the gas saying, work, right, focus. But your limbic system, the emotional center, is ripping the parking brake up.
So you're moving, but you're grinding.
You're grinding. You are generating heat, agitation, and a lot of exhaust. And Huberman points out that limb friction usually manifests in one of 2 ways. Either I'm too tired, which is lethargy, or I'm too anxious, which is fear.
That makes total sense. And I want to touch on something else Huberman mentioned in the sources, because I am absolutely guilty of this. When I feel that friction, that parking brake, I usually try to hack it by layering things.
By hearing? What do you mean?
Yeah, like if I have to do a workout I really don't want to do, I don't just go do it. I drink a double espresso first. Then I put on my loudest, highest energy playlist. And maybe I even take a pre-workout supplement. I'm stacking the deck to basically force myself to move.
Yes. And Huberman waves a massive red flag right here. He calls this stacking dopamine sources, and he warns that it is very dangerous territory.
Why is it dangerous, though? It gets the job done. I go do the workout.
It gets the job done today. But remember the wave pool. If you stack coffee plus loud music plus supplements plus maybe a phone call with a friend on the way to the gym, you are creating a massive artificial peak.
Which means a massive crash later.
Yes, the crash is bad. But there is a much more insidious long-term effect happening. Over time, your brain starts to associate the activity itself, the exercise or the work, with that huge chemical spike. If you ever take away the external stuff, the activity itself no longer provides enough dopamine to even register.
Oh, wow. So I literally lose the ability to do the task without the crutches.
Exactly. You've outsourced your drive, you kill your intrinsic motivation entirely. And Huberman cites a classic study about the gold star effect that really illustrates this perfectly.
Oh, this is the one with the kids drawing, right?
Yes. So researchers took kids who naturally loved to draw. They just did it for fun, purely intrinsic motivation. Then The researchers started giving them these little gold stars every single time they drew a picture.
So the kids were drawing more because they wanted the star, not because they actually liked drawing anymore.
Exactly. They shifted from intrinsic motivation to extrinsic. But here's the absolute kicker. When the researchers completely stopped giving out the stars, the kids didn't just go back to their normal previous drawing habits. They stopped drawing entirely.
Wait, entirely? Even though they loved doing it before the stars even existed?
Entirely. The brain had recalculated the value of the activity. It essentially said, well, we don't do this for free anymore.
That's actually terrifying.
Right.
I mean, if you think about how we raise kids or manage teams at work, we are constantly bribing people to do things.
And Huberman warns that this is the ultimate danger of stacking. If you layer too many high dopamine triggers onto things you already enjoy, or even just things you need to do to function, you'll eventually find yourself unable to do them at all without the bribe.
Okay, so that's the biological side of the house. We're managing our peaks, we're managing troughs, and we're avoiding the crash. But I have to play devil's advocate here for a second. Sometimes I'm not procrastinating because I'm low on chemicals or because I'm bored. Sometimes I am procrastinating because I'm totally freaking out.
Right. And if you are freaking out, a cold shower might actually be the absolute worst thing you could possibly do.
Right. I mean, if I'm deeply anxious, shocking my system sounds like a recipe for a full-blown panic attack.
And this is exactly where we pivot to Alyssa Smith's perspective. Because she argues that for a lot of people, procrastination isn't a chemical malfunction at all. It is a trauma response.
Okay, let's go back to that word trauma, because I can hear the listeners right now going, great, another deep dive telling me everything is trauma. It feels like that word gets thrown around so much, it's losing its meaning. How is this different from just, life being hard?
It's a very fair pushback, and Smith addresses this. We aren't talking about big T trauma here, like a war zone or a severe car crash. Smith defines this as tiny T trauma.
What exactly is a tiny T trauma?
These are what she calls the silent killers of productivity. These are small, repetitive, emotional injuries, usually stemming from childhood. It's like a slow drip. For example, maybe you grew up in a house where you were only praised when you got an A. If you got a B, you were just ignored.
The standard high achiever childhood.
Right. But your nervous system learns a very specific, deeply ingrained lesson from that. It learns, if I am not perfect, I am not safe. Fast forward 20 years, you're sitting at your desk trying to write an email to your boss. Your brain isn't seeing an email, it's seeing a literal threat to your safety if it isn't absolutely perfect.
So the procrastination is basically a shield.
It's a safe harbor. Smith frames this as a battle between the left brain and the right brain. The left brain is your logic, your calculus, your ability to type words on a screen. The right brain is survival, it's the vagus nerve. Its only job is don't die.
And if the right brain senses a tiny T threat?
It completely hijacks the car. It shuts down the left brain. As Smith puts it, you don't need to do high-level calculus if you're being chased by a bear. You just need to run or freeze, and procrastination is the freeze response.
She gave some really compelling real-world examples of this in the source material. I think the story of Francesca really stuck with me because, honestly, it didn't look like fear on the surface.
No, Francesca looked like a rebel. She was chronically late to work. She tried every alarm clock, every productivity hack, every self-punishment you can think of. Nothing worked.
Because it wasn't really about time management.
No. Through her work, it turned out her tiny T trauma was a childhood wound about being controlled. She had a very, very controlling parent. So subconsciously, being late was her way of asserting freedom. It was a safety mechanism to feel like she was actually in charge of her own life.
Wow. And then there was Amani, right?
Yeah.
With the kitchen remodel.
Yes. So Amani wanted to remodel her kitchen but stalled on it for years. To the outside world, it looked like she was just disorganized or lazy. But when they dug into it, it came out that she had a deep, deep fear of being seen as unintelligent. She needed the plan to be absolutely 100% perfect before she could start, or she risked being exposed as a fraud.
Perfectionism as a defense mechanism.
Exactly. And Smith uses this really great analogy for this. She says procrastination is just a Band-Aid. Imagine you are running a race, but your shoes are untied. You keep tripping and skinning your knee. Procrastination is just slapping a Band-Aid on the skinned knee.
But you never actually tie the shoes.
You never tie the shoes.
No.
You never address the root fear, the tiny T trauma that is causing you to stumble in the first place. And you simply can't win the race if you're just constantly managing the injury.
So we have a serious conflict here between our two sources. Huberman says your dopamine is low, shock the system, make it painful. Smith says your nervous system is panicked, make yourself feel safe. Those are literal opposites. How are we supposed to know which one to do?
That is the million-dollar question. And the synthesis of these two sources is that you have to become a diagnostic mechanic for your own brain.
Hmm.
You have to sit down and honestly ask yourself, why am I stalling right now?
Okay, let's build a decision matrix for the listener. Let's do scenario A. I'm sitting on the couch. I'm scrolling on my phone. I feel totally flat. I'm not anxious. I'm just lethargic.
Yeah.
I'm bored.
That is a low dopamine state. The wave pool is empty. In that specific case, Smith's safety tools won't help you at all because you're already too safe. You're entirely comfortable. So you need Huberman's lever. You need friction.
So that's the moment I sprint up the stairs or take the cold shower.
Yes. You need to prove to your biology that you can move through friction. You have to kickstart the engine with adrenaline.
Okay, scenario B. I have a major deadline looming. I'm staring at the blank screen. My heart is physically racing. I'm rewriting the first sentence over and over again because it's just not perfect. I'm terrified to actually start.
Right, that is not a dopamine problem. That is a safety problem. Your right brain has hijacked the car. If you try to force yourself into a cold shower in that state, you are just confirming to your body that you are actively under attack. You might actually trigger a complete nervous system shutdown.
So I need Smith's lever. I need to soothe the vagus nerve to bring the left brain back online. Now, she has a very specific physical hack for this, and I really want to get the details right because it involves touching your own face.
It does, yes, and there is real proven biology behind it. It's about signaling safety directly through the physical body, not the mind, because you really can't think your way out of a survival response.
Walk us through the exact steps of this hack.
First, you rub your hands together vigorously. This creates heat and physical friction. It grounds you in your body, which helps get you out of that awful what-if spiral happening in your head.
Okay, so creating physical sensation.
Then, and this is the key part, you place those warm hands directly on your cheeks or the sides of your neck, and you apply gentle, firm pressure.
Like literally holding your own face.
Yes. And I know it sounds almost childish, but mechanically, this physically stimulates the vagus nerve. It releases oxytocin. It sends a direct biological signal to the brainstem saying, we are being held, we are safe.
And then there's the hug part she mentions.
Right. After that, she suggests crossing your arms over your chest and giving your shoulders a really firm squeeze, basically hugging yourself while taking a very slow, deep breath.
It's a self-soothe. It's exactly what a parent does to a frightened child.
Exactly, and that's the whole point. You are actively parenting your own nervous system. You are telling the right brain, hey, there is no tiger chasing us, it's just a spreadsheet. And once the right brain finally calms down, the left brain, the logic, the ability to actually sit and work naturally comes back online.
I love that so much. It's essentially debugging your own operating system.
It is, and it's incredibly empowering because it means you get to stop identifying as a procrastinator. You aren't a procrastinator. You are either understimulated, meaning low dopamine, or you are overstressed, meaning low safety. Once you know which one it is, you know exactly which tool to pull out of the toolkit.
It really changes the entire conversation from, I need to have more discipline to, I need to provide my body with the right input.
Precisely. It removes the shame entirely.
So let's wrap this all up for you listening. We've looked at the wave pool of dopamine and the very real danger of falling into the trough. We've looked at tiny T trauma and how the survival brain can hijack our productivity.
And we've learned that the ultimate goal isn't just to find a hack to get things done faster. It's to understand what is actually happening under the hood.
Yeah. The biggest shift for me, looking at all this material together, is moving away from being so obsessed with the outcome. We are constantly so focused on just finishing the task.
That is the ultimate takeaway here. Huberman talks a lot about moving from outcome-based motivation to making the effort itself the reward. If you only work for the gold star or the paycheck or the applause from your boss, you are entirely at the mercy of the external world. You are fragile.
But if you can somehow learn to love the friction,
if you can train your brain to view the friction, the literal hardness of the cold water, the difficulty of writing that very first sentence as the signal that you are winning, then you become completely unstoppable.
it's a really provocative thought to leave you with. Huberman asks this question: what if the pain of starting isn't actually a barrier at all? What if that pain is exactly the dopamine trigger you've been waiting for? What if you actively leaned into the friction instead of constantly trying to smooth it out?
And on the flip side of that coin, from Melissa Smith, what if you stopped beating yourself up for being scared? What if, instead of calling yourself lazy and undisciplined, you just took 10 seconds to physically tell your body it's safe to perform?
Two very different paths, but the exact same destination, which is getting you back in the driver's seat of your own life. Thanks for taking this deep dive with us today.
Always a pleasure.
Go tie those shoes. We'll see you next time.